Merry Meet Annie here. Most of my videos are either because I have seen someone else's video and am intrigued by a subject that I want to go into further or share or do a video response on, or a great number of them are because of the questions that people send me, and very often in emails. And I have had two questions that have come to me rather regularly. It seems since Yule, since the turning of wintertime this year. And they're very related questions, and they are questions about what I think about spirit animal and spirit guide, what it means to me, and also a lot of questions, especially in the last month, many questions about my feeling of what is the underworld. And these questions come from many different positions. They come from people who wonder what a traditional teaching is around that, what it consists of, what's in it, what is the meaning behind it. Others have specifically asked me, as they are exploring coming from other faiths, is it a place that we go to in between incarnations? Is it a place of suffering or limbo? Is it a place where we are sharing information before we go on to the next stage? All of these different things that the underworld might be. All of those things are definitely a possibility. So I'm going to share what the underworld is to me. Now, it's what it is to me. I do not find that there is a consistent concept of it, except at a very general level, amongst pagans. So this is not what it is one witch's experience of it. And my experience is most definitely stemmed from what I was taught in my first circle, because the symbolism that the underworld was given then has continued to hold value for me. And I've learned a lot from the experiences of it in those early days, and as I have revisited it, as the circumstances of my life and my experiences and maturity have changed, it has continued to deepen and hold even more meaning for me, coming from the place that I first learned it. I learned of the underworld as one of three worlds: the underworld, the physical world, and the upper world, or the other world is what my circle called it. Under, physical, and other. Now, it wasn't seen as something that was that literal, that there was a underworld below and a middle world and an upper world. That's not how we were taught it. We were taught to conceive of it in two ways, which is to think of all three of them in the sense of something below, in the middle, and above, but that the snake of life spiraled through all of those layers, tying them all together, and the snake held the energy of all three of the levels at any given time. They weren't linear. They didn't exist in separate places. In a sense, they were one and the same, but three experiences of existence. And another way that we looked at it was as the world tree. And that is a way I think that a lot of people are seeing it in books, as it's portrayed whenever there is an in-depth discussion of the underworld in a book, and it doesn't happen very often, does it? The world tree is used as an example, whether it is the concept of the world tree that is Celtic, or it is Yggdrasil, the Norse world tree. There's a lot of power to the images of the world tree, representing the three levels of existence, or the roots, or the symbol of the underworld, and what goes deep below into the dark, in the sense of where it is cannot be seen. The trunk, representing the physical plane, that which we can literally touch and feel and know, and it is the experience of the presence of the here and now. And then there is the up-reaching essence of the limbs, the branches, which reach again off into an unknown, but an unknown that is filled with light, therefore seen as quite different than the darkness that the roots come from. Now, when looking at that world tree as a representative of the three worlds, like the snake that you can imagine going up through it if you have a linear concept of the three worlds in your mind, the concept of the world tree is that those branches which reach up also come down and swoop around and come back down to the ground, and the roots which go deep down into the darkness also swoop around and come back up to the surface, making a circle of life. So that trunk becomes a representative then not only of the physical, what we can know and understand in the here and now, but the conduit of energy which is constant of all three of those levels of reality, sending energy back and forth, a column, an ever vibrant column of energy between the three worlds. So both of those ways of looking at the three worlds, whether we see them as distinct with the serpent of life winding through them, or we use a world tree as our symbol for them, the lesson from that is that they are all constant. They are all possibility and existing at the same time. So when we call something the underworld, we're not specifically saying it is below, and below is somehow the only place that it can be. It's an experience. It's a world that exists concurrent with the others and can be experienced at any time. So a little bit about what the underworld is to me. It's the place of all beginnings. Wiccan teachings are that everything begins in death. The turning of the wheel begins in the darkness, and out of the darkness comes light. Things come forward. Darkness is the place of mystery, of all the things that we don't yet know and cannot conceive of. It is not lit in the literal or the figurative sense. It's also the place of absolute chaos, where things are they're dying and being born in very dramatic ways. It's not always a gentle process, this dying and being born. It can also be very vibrant and dramatic. It's a place of death, but it is a place of death in the sense of the beauty of death, that there cannot be life without the giving over to that darkness. It is a place of wholeness in the sense of the underworld is not seen, in the way I conceive of it, as the place of the dead in the sense of specific individual dead people. It is the collective unconscious. It is the experience and the knowledge of all who have ever lived. But it is not about specific. I'm not going to meet my grandmom in the underworld. In my practice, if I want to spend time with my grandmom, I go to the West, which is where the specific ancestors lie in my tradition. The underworld is seen as the place of collective unconscious, everything that we know and we are continually coming to know as human existence. So when we study meditative forms which take us there, when we journey to the underworld, physically, intellectually, emotionally, psychologically, when we are in that place, there is this wonderful immersion that happens, because there is the underworld, which is the vastness of the underworld in which we are lost, in the sense that we are one with this huge, huge human energy. At the same time, we are unique within it, because we are a symbol of the underworld, in the sense that what is within us individually, our darkness, the things that die and need to be reborn in us, is very much a part of the experience of the underworld. And in meditations and journeys to the underworld, we are not only immersed in the vastness of it, but we are aware of it as an internal process. The goddess teaches us, probably the most in the liturgy that you follow in traditional Wicca, about the power of the underworld, and that is through her descent to it. She makes an intentional descent to the underworld where she, one by one, releases her attachment to 7 levels of existence. And yes, in our training and our studies in those early days, and in the ones I still take on with students, we will go through what are the 7 levels of existence. Another take all together that is far more complicated than looking at the kind of, but not maybe, simplicity of the 3 levels of existence. She, in her descent to the underworld to meet the god, makes an intentional decision to shed certain things along the way. And the lesson that we learn from her is it's not easy to do that. It's not easy to give up, give over, to experience the death of things. She does it, and she teaches us that to get to that place of wholeness, of inner knowing, of knowing ourselves, being able to give over to that thing which is so much larger than us, the beauty, the mystery that is of the underworld. We have to release so much. We have to release pretension and attachment. We have to release hurts. We have to release others' opinions of us. We have to release our own opinions of us. The descent is initiation. We all learn that if we study traditional witchcraft. We all learn that in traditional Wicca, that we must, as she, descend into the place of deepest darkness, of releasing all attachment. The chaos then wells up within us, and something is born from that. We become in touch with, we become one with who we are outside of all those external influences on us. We are each so uniquely perfect in the universe. And we don't always, in fact, we don't usually have a connection to our own personal perfect beauty. It takes work to get to that place. It's a place of building from. The underworld, and the way I see it, is a place of beginning. An absolute place of beginning. It's not a linear sense of beginning where everything begins there, becomes physical reality, and then moves on. It is a place of eternal beginning. Because nothing is ever complete, and when something is manifested, it then, think of the leaves of the world tree, those branches that come back and touch the ground. Think of the spiraling serpent within the three realms, which the energy then spirals back through all the planes of existence. Nothing is ever complete. Everything is always being born and reborn. A quote I like to use, and I wrote it down so I remember to tell it to you. This experience of the underworld at an emotional and spiritual and very psychological level, it's not Wiccan per se. It's human. We all understand this underworld, that we all have the opportunity, no matter how frightening it may seem, to visit. Joseph Campbell said that the only truly creative acts derive from some sort of dying, and that is the underworld as I know it. It's not a place of actual death. I don't find ancestors or ghosts there. I do find their energy combined with the energy of all else which has experienced existence and which will yet experience existence. It's a very powerful place of giving over, of releasing, and that releasing creates a new mixture. Something new comes from it. That's the underworld for me, a place of eternal beginning. So there's nothing in my underworld that's about limbo, because it's constant chaos and rebirth. It's beautiful in its blackness. Nothing about punishment. Punishment between worlds or between existences, some form of karmic fate or punishment between existences is not part of my cosmology, not something I have even the slightest attachment to. Yeah, the underworld can seem overwhelming and frightening because we have to give over to it. We have to experience it fully. We have to experience death. And by that I don't mean, although it will become that at some point in our lives, I don't mean the physical death of ourselves. I do mean the death of the things which need to die, which should not matter, which we can make not to matter, the things which keep us from being most purely who we are. All those things are born in the place of the underworld.